Hi everyone, hope you're doing well. Welcome along to Spill the Beans. My name is Duncan Goldie. My guest this week is Lisa Riley, who is the Director of Strategy and Partnerships with Transforming Systems. Those of you who know Transforming Systems will obviously probably know Lisa as well, as she's very forward-facing with their business growth strategy. Transforming Systems, for those of you who aren't aware, are they were basically founded during the H1N1 pandemic in 2009. So they're very well versed around this pandemic situation and how to operate a business throughout it. But basically they were founded in order to improve the access to information and visibility of real-time information across the NHS. So their vision is to enable the NHS and other social services to use that real-time information to make data-driven decisions. So it's a really kind of key factor in the kind of change of process within NHS and NHS improvement. So really interesting to hear from Lisa, really engaging story about how she came through the ranks as a clinician into I suppose having to actually move outside of the NHS, because that's all she'd ever known for quite some time. Really interesting, and I found it really insightful, so I'm sure you guys will too. So enjoy.
Great, Lisa. Hi, thank you so much for appearing on the podcast with me today. Tell me, whereabouts in the world are you right now?
I'm actually in Canterbury in Kent, down in the southeast.
Lovely. What's it like down there during lockdown 2.0?
Actually, it's not hit us as severely as everywhere else at the moment, but we know it's on the way. We're starting to see it rise, but we've been pretty protected by it so far.
Yeah, exactly. Not a bad place to be, I suppose. If you're going to be out stuck working from home, I suppose it's better to be somewhere a little bit greener where you can get outside. Yeah. What's your working from home setup like? Have you been managing it okay?
It's been great, and as you say, the green space is beautiful and great for dog walks and running and stuff like that, but internet connection is appalling. So
hence the reason why we're both not displaying our video if anyone's watching this on YouTube, but that's not too bad. So obviously I mean, in terms of the kind of I suppose working from home setup and stuff like that, it has been pretty challenging for everyone, but most people have been able to adapt. Have you experience, like, is it completely different from your normal working life, or are you normally in an office? What's the kind of normal setup?
So there's probably two parts to how we work. You've got the tech side, who tend to be office based anyway, but they've managed to absolutely work phenomenally from home and still do what they do more remotely. And then the other side is sort of the partnership side, where we are out traveling. So that's been a real change to certainly that part of the business, where you're out meeting people on site and going out to visit them and doing it all remotely. Saying that, it's more intensive, I have to say. You are literally back to back on team after team, and it's surprising how mentally draining it is talking non-stop for 8 to 10 hours. But it's all doable. So I think it's shown actually you can achieve what you need to achieve virtually. It makes it a little bit harder, and you can't read body language and things like that, and probably get some of we do a lot of hearts and minds stuff. You can't get that emotion across as well as you would if you was in a room, but it's all workable, it's all doable, and there's ways around it.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think you're right there in saying that there's a lot of kind of increased demand, I suppose, for people's time, because you don't have to travel between meetings or anything like that, and every half an hour becomes a new meeting, to be honest. So sometimes it's hard to get stuff achieved when you're just in back-to-back meetings and you get that Zoom fatigue. But hopefully we've caught you at the right time of the day where you haven't quite hit that point yet. But well, I do appreciate you taking the time out of your busy schedule with Transforming Systems to speak with me today. So I guess before we jump on to Transforming Systems and talk through those guys in a little bit more detail, what's the kind of story of you? What's your background, and what led you up to join Transforming Systems?
So my background, I always introduce myself by, first and foremost, I'm a nurse by trade. So as soon as I left school, I went straight into university at the age of 18 to become a nurse and did my nurse training. And that was on the back of, when I was growing up, I lost my dad at an early age, and it affected me quite significantly, actually. I spent the majority of my childhood living in and out of hospitals. And I remember my dad always joking that I never spent any time with him because I was too busy wheeling ladies around in wheelchairs or just spending time talking to a lot of the patients. So actually it set me up really, and it was just something I've possibly wanted to be a doctor. I wanted to go into health, and I'll be honest, I was on this mission. I was going to keep everyone alive, because my thing was, I don't want people to go through what I went through. And as I said, it did affect me quite significantly. I had a fantastic family and support structure, but I never got over it. So I suppose I wanted to be a doctor, but financially it didn't seem it was achievable. So I was very fortunate at the time. Nursing at the time, you still had the bursary, so I could afford to go to university and do a career that was delivering what my aim was, and that was to save lives. But essentially, obviously, I realised quickly I'm not a miracle worker. I can't save everyone's life, and I was probably quite an emotional wreck when I first qualified as a nurse. Probably not the most appropriate. I went straight into critical care. I threw myself right in the deep end. I love the excitement. I love the buzz. I just love the energy. And it's very much acute focus for a few years. And then when it was time for me to start a family, it just wasn't, I couldn't maintain that lifestyle. It literally was 14-hour days, wasn't having a break. I was working about an hour away from home. So I wasn't, when I first had my first child, I wasn't seeing him. My husband was a fireman. So we just had separate lives, and we were sort of passing ships every time we come home. So I decided to join the community and become a district nurse. And I'll be honest, I was very blinkered about what that entailed. It sounded appealing. It sounded a bit boring, if I'm honest. It didn't sound like it had that buzz of, resuscitating people every 5 minutes. And as I said, keeping people alive and everything. But actually, it was an eye-opener. And I'll probably say that a lot in this session. Everything's an eye-opener. I reflect on everything. But actually, when I joined the community, you realise how much goes on in the community. And actually, the acute trust and the hospital experience is just a really small part of that patient journey. There's so much you should be doing and can do in the community. So I was a district nurse for many, many years, and got into management very quickly. And I had this conversation the other day. I think any job in health is a privilege, because actually it can go in many different directions. Mine did go into management very quickly because I wanted to make a difference. And to do that, you had to be in management. I wanted to make changes. I wanted the autonomy to do things different that you see needed changing, but I couldn't do as a clinician. So I spent 12 years in community, and I managed many, many services in the community in that time. And again, I was reflecting the other day with some friends who, I remember a manager of mine at the time took me out of my comfort zone. I'd been a district nurse for many years and enjoyed it, managed the service, knew it inside out. It was my real comfort zone. And I'd gone for another promotion, another senior manager role. It still entailed managing community nursing, and she didn't give it to me, which I was quite offended at. But she offered me an alternative, same role, but managing every service other than nursing, and it was therapies and inpatient units and everything else. And I was like, oh I'm a nurse. How am I going to manage physios and OTs? But it's the best thing that could have ever happened to me, because actually it meant I had to go out my comfort zone. It built my confidence up, and it got me learning so many more different skills and the way the system works, more system-led as opposed to just providing nursing care. And that sort of set me up to start working in the acute trust, looking at discharge pathways. And again, the same manager who's absolutely shaped my career, I have to say, by chucking me in the deep end every time. We had ESIST involved at our local trust, and that's the Emergency Care Intensive Support Team, which was part of NHS Improvement at the time, but have now merged with NHS England. And they were leading a lot of improvement work at the acute trust. And at the time, discharge to assess was the new thing and was seen as the gold standard to achieve better discharge rates. Now, I managed every service in the community that took patients out of the hospital at the time. So it was seen that I was probably the most suited to lead the project and to deliver it. And at the time, can hand on heart say, I was very blinkered again, that actually we had no waiting list. There was nothing wrong with the discharge process. It was obviously an acute problem because they just weren't discharging enough people. But the more we had to deliver the discharge to assess model, and that's sort of what's accelerated my career since then. Actually, we delivered the discharge to assess model, and we called it the Medway model, in 8 weeks, and that's something I've not seen anywhere around the country. And it was a full-blown 4 pathways, no fuss. Everybody comes out home as their first point of contact, and they are assessed at home. We genuinely allow no assessments in the hospital. So that got me recognised with ESIST, and they asked me to join them and work with a national team on improving patient flow in urgent care. So I joined them for a couple of years, and I, again, very privileged that I got to work across the country, talking to many trusts. When I first went in, I was particularly armed at discharge to assess in the community, but then I started to get involved more in the whole patient pathway in terms of urgent care and the patient flow. And at the time, we were very much looking at the last 1,000 days. I don't know if you've heard of it, Duncan, but it was something coined by Professor Brian Dolan, who's a lovely guy. And if anyone ever gets to listen to him speak, please do, because I don't do him justice by any means. But it's the concept that actually, if we don't get patient flow right, we're wasting valuable, precious time. And actually, most of the patients in the hospital, if you look at the demographics, and sort of the average life expectancy of men and women who are in the hospital, most of them have 1,000 days or less to live. And at the time, I was going through a very personal situation. As when I first joined ESIS, my stepfather, the guy who brought me up after losing my real dad for the last 30 years, had been diagnosed very coincidentally with lung cancer, absolutely found by accident. So we had the concept of the last 1,000 days. I bought into it. It made me cry when I saw the video, and I completely understood it, but I probably didn't live it. And it was only when there was lots of delays and process problems in terms of my stepdad's care at the time, that actually led to his prognosis being one that he was going to make a full recovery, to actually he only had a few weeks left to live. And that completely changed me overnight. And actually I saw things very differently, and how actually everyone's got a part to play in patient flow. It's a team sport. It's not all about A&E. It's about what everybody can do. There's not one thing that's going to fix patient flow. You all have to be in it together. You need to support each other. And you shouldn't be tied in with contracts and service specs and everything I was guilty of. And, you know, I look after my teams, and actually what happens in hospitals is a hospital's problem. It doesn't work like that. So very much from that point, tried to reinforce that message and try and keep getting everybody signed up to actually, this is your responsibility. You are here to support the whole system. It's not about just what's going on in the queue, as I said. And at the time when I was with ESIST, I was hearing more and more about SHREWD, and SHREWD is our suite of products. And I'll be honest, SHREWD was a swear word when I was at community services, because it was something we fed into. I knew, I'd heard of it. There was a spreadsheet, and my team every day had to fill in a spreadsheet. And what we thought was it was a daily sit rep, was feeding the beast. But the more I kept hearing about SHREWD 2 years later with ESIST, I then started to look into it more, and actually I was astounded by what I found. I didn't know it existed. I didn't know what the data I'd been providing all those years when I managed the services, what it actually meant, where it was going, who looked at it. So then I started to see actually SHREWD, the SHREWD product in particular, SHREWD Resilience, is an urgent and emergency care dashboard, and it's a live system dashboard. And actually, if the whole system have access to it, then why they're not using it? So I started to work very closely with the SHREWD team whilst I was with ESIST to look at actually where it's implemented. Why are you not shouting about it more? Why are you not linking this into patient flow? And all the messages I'm giving with ESIST, you're providing the answers and the data to back it up on your system. And ESIST are very much focused on measuring improvement. So again, I become a real boffin when I was at ESIST. In terms of data, I was ashamed to say barely used it when I was managing services. it was always, one, I didn't have access to it, we didn't think it was reliable, and it was always about performance, and it was always retrospective, so it was out of date by the time I saw it. But actually with ESIS, again, they taught me how to use it to measure improvement, as I said, look at trends, look at you know, significant changes that are going to impact what's going on, and look at those early warning signs in the system of where you've got problems building. And I saw SHREWD did that, but it did it live, and it did it in such a way that was very easy for operational teams to look at, know the problem, and get on and do what they needed to do. So I spent a lot of time working with the SHREWD team in the systems I was covering with ESIS to look at how they use it better, and started to help them design stuff, another system for safer patient flow bundle, which again was something ESIS were promoting very much and advocating. It was born out of ESIS. And then I met the founder of Transforming Systems, Colin Rees, the co-founder, and it turned out I knew him anyway, but I didn't realise he was associated with SHREWD, as certainly not the co-founder. And he just won me with his passion and the same, his drive. Everything he's done with Transforming Systems is about making things better. It truly is. It's not about the business. It's not about making money. It was always about the health system needs something, and we're going to do something to provide it. And we bought into that. And when I met the team, and he offered me a post at Transforming Systems because he'd seen what I've been doing with ESIS, and said we need more systems to understand how they use it better and what they can actually do with it. It's not just a tool for the CCG, and it's not performance management. It genuinely is there to help people, if only people know it exists and how it can work. So really it started there, and I've been at Transforming Systems now for just over 2 years.
Yeah, amazing. I mean, it's quite an emotional story, really, in terms of your journey through, you know, seeing both sides of the issues within healthcare. You know, both from a sort of, you know, employee perspective, and then also as, you know, someone who's been impacted in your family life as well. So, I mean, when you sort of first became aware of SHREWD and Transforming Systems, you obviously were very aware of the problems, but were you ever really aware that there were solutions out there, or solutions on the horizon?
No, not at all, I'll be honest. No, I think we're very much ingrained, certainly when I was a manager managing the services, you're very much ingrained in day-to-day delivery. It is still about the patients, of course it is. And I remember, again, same manager, I'll always credit, always used to, if there was a problem, she'd say, just sort out the patient and we'll argue the money or the contract bit after. Just sort the patient out, do what's right for them first, and as I said, we'll argue everything else at a later date. But actually you don't have the headroom to look up and see what's out there. You don't have the headroom to network, see how other people work, what other models there are out there. And I think ESIS gave that platform to start sharing it more and start talking about it. And we're trying to do the same thing here. So at Transforming Systems, I've nicked a bit of the ESIS model, and we do a lot of informal or organic consultancy as part of any contract we have. You get a partnership manager, and it's all about that learning. And we often say we stumble across all the different pathways and the improvement work going on, because we often have to translate that back into the system. So, for example, if a new frailty pathway set up, we'll capture the data and put that on the system because it's absolutely crucial to that flow. But we'll often share that learning, and we'll say to one of our partners and say, actually, we've just been at this hospital over here, and actually they've got a really good mental health pathway. Do you want me to put you in touch? And we're finding more and more we're doing a lot of that, because actually, as I said, it's just the headroom for operational teams and clinicians to know all there is out there, and what's available, all the different ways they can do things, and sort of empower them. Actually, you don't have to keep doing what you've been doing. You know, you have a voice, and actually we can back you up. We can back you up with the data, we can give you the evidence, and you can start trying to apply that where you are if you think it's going to be useful and work.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's not uncommon for people who've, you know, been a clinician or been, you know, within the NHS for some time to realize quite quickly, once they take a step out of it, that you are actually able to impact more change from outside the NHS than you are from within it. And yeah, a lot of it does come down to that individual capacity or risk management or anything like that, you know, with the patients, I suppose, at the forefront of everyone's decision making, but also, you know, not having that headspace to be able to realize that there are other options out there which are going to benefit the patients, you know, long term as well. So I mean, in terms of transforming systems and the growth you've been doing, like you said, you nicked a little bit of the ESYST model. How's it been going in terms of growing the business, you know, over the past couple of years, I suppose, pre and post COVID? What's the kind of appetite and the take up been internally within the NHS?
It is exciting. It's limitless in what the opportunities are, but again, I suppose the hard bit is staying focused. What's needed? I always describe our company as we're two worlds, and I hope I don't do them a disjustice, but we've got a tech side and we've got the sort of the health side. And I won't say we're all clinicians, because we're not, but the health side have all worked in health at some point. They may have been in CCG, you know, leading EPRR, things like that. They've all been ingrained in the NHS for many, many, many years. In different roles, so we've all got that element, but it's two worlds. We've got the tech side, who are extremely clever, and they can build anything you want them to build. And I think some of it is just taming it back a bit and actually saying it doesn't need to be all singing and all dancing. Sometimes it's a bit too complicated. So it's how we merge the two together to say, this is what we think we need. Yes, we know you can build something really fancy, but actually operationally, they just need to see this and this. And it's how we get those two worlds to work together to give you something that is what we've designed, which is, we haven't reinvented the wheel. A lot of what we do, the SHREWD products, is we take data that exists already. And if it doesn't, we do spend a lot of time working with providers to look at, can we improve your process of collecting data, or can we replace it? So actually, if it doesn't exist and you are still working on paper diaries, can you put it directly onto our system? And then that saves you time. It's out there in the ether and everyone can see it. So we've always taken data, but we've just played it back in a story that's easy to understand, because there's lots of great systems out there, and we've got partnership working with lots of other providers and who people might see as our competitors. But it's only by us working together we help with all these solutions. So we put if you can imagine, a clinician has got access to what's going on in the acute trust, and there's obviously several systems in the acute trust. But if they need to know what's going on in the ambulance trust and what's coming in their way, they need to log out and then log into that one. If they need to know what's going on in the community, they need to log out and log into that one. They all look different, they all operate different, and you're relying on somebody who's very busy, very pressured to remember what they've seen, interpret it, join it together, and then build that story. All of our products in SHREWD do that. We take the data, we do all the fancy stuff, the tech team do their transformation of that data and all the very clever bits, and then they play it back in a way that tells the story immediately. It tells it very quickly, you can understand it, it shows you exactly where the problems are, and then it's about supporting that system to respond to whatever those warning signs are on that system. So I said it is exciting. COVID created opportunities, but obviously challenges, because getting in and talking to people has been incredibly difficult, and you can completely understand that. But we did develop something in response to COVID, because a lot of the data we had was around urgent care and patient flow and elective care, but actually it wasn't capturing the key bits. So the COVID product we designed, we did in 2 weeks. And that was just one of our customers sent me a text saying, Lisa, I need to see, he's managing the incident command center for the ICS. We need to see the PPE and we need to see ventilators. Can you get it? And then he just let us loose, and we started to build something again that captured everything they needed, that told the story, and wasn't reliant on the 48 spreadsheets that were circulating around every morning for a clinician or operational leader to understand in these 48 spreadsheets who had what, where they were going, and by the time they've read it, it's out of date anyway. So we just captured that, made it live. So it did bring opportunities, as I said. It was difficult. I think we've overcome that now, and hopefully people can see it's easy still to work with us, and if you need us to build extra stuff, we can build it. but it is about taming it as well and not getting overexcited and building all sorts of weird and wonderful things that people probably don't need, won't use, and it's just because it's excited us rather than it's critical to people working at the moment. So it's keeping our sort of our feet on the ground on what's needed as opposed to what's really exciting.
And do you think that comes from your clinical kind of acumen within the team, or do you think that comes from your ability to be able to kind of I suppose roll things out very quickly and work in a very sort of lean way to be able to get what's needed within each organization to kind of streamline it a bit more? Or is it a balance of the two?
Boringly, I think it's both. I think I think we've got as I said, the tech guys have been absolutely pivotal, and they've built something incredible. They can adapt it very quickly. They've got tools and all these very clever things that I can't even begin to understand or explain very well, as you can see. That makes it very easy to work with. So if we do need to change, then my team will go in, see what someone needs, see how we can adapt it, see how it could possibly work. We give that message to the tech team, probably not well most of the time, and expect them to understand our world. And then they build it. So it is a merge of the two. We'll spend the time with the customers, or we call them our partners, because actually we spend a lot of time in there. I've just spent last week help writing a full capacity protocol, and I said that's part of the informal consultation that, you know, they don't realise they probably get, because we're a system. We provide a platform and we provide a data system, but actually you get the people behind it as well, informing you how you could do things a bit different, how you can make changes, and have you thought about this improvement? So we do that bit, and then we, as I said, we translate that back to the tech team, and they build it in a way that we think the customers can use it. And as I said, we call them partners, because actually we learn from them. We'll let them play with it, and then they'll say, actually, no, I don't like that. That doesn't work. And then we adapt it. And that's how we've grown. That's how Transforming Systems first come about. It was working in Kent and Medway, which is obviously where I'm based. And they designed it with the users and said, actually, how are you going to use this every day? What do you need to see? What do you do every day? We walk in their shoes for a period of time, just so we can learn, actually, are you going to touch this? Is it functional? Does it make sense? How quick is it? And actually, if it's not useful, I mean, when I first come along, we had more products that we got rid of, because when we looked at them, and it was actually, I don't see people are going to use it, so let's not waste our time, get rid of them, and let's focus on the core ones that actually we know are useful right now. And I hope that's how we're going to keep evolving.
Okay, yeah, great. So, I mean, you've obviously worked internally within the NHS for quite a long time before joining Transforming Systems. When you're, you know, approaching new conversations with prospective, you know, buyers of the system and everything like that, do they see that as a positive, or, I mean, how is that received from their side?
Yeah, it's definitely a positive in terms of what comes with us for all of my team who've worked in the NHS is that credibility. We understand the pressure, we understand a lot of the problems, we've lived it, we've worked in that environment ourselves, so we've all got this great empathy for what's going on. But it's also a challenge at the same time, and I think what makes me more uncomfortable, having left the NHS. And it took me a long time to consider Colin's offer when he asked me to join Transforming Systems, because I've been in there for 18 years at that point. And to suddenly come out from what I'd grown, because I'd obviously become a nurse from leaving school. So it's all I've ever known is the NHS. And it's that, it feels a bit uncomfortable when you talk to people, because they always seem to have this impression that you're trying to sell them something. And to a degree, yes, we're a business. In order to keep providing what we provide, we need to make money, obviously, but that's not the first intention every time we have a chat with someone. A lot of what we do is about making things better, and it's about helping support systems and show them the different ways they can do things. I mean, it's really sweet. Yesterday we did a webinar and had a great director of ops, a guy we work with really closely over the last few months for our SHREWD elective model. And I asked him to come and talk on the webinar about, it's about improving flow in elective care. And bless him, as soon as he started talking, it's like he was doing a sales pitch for me. And it was so sweet, because he was really bigging us up, and he was saying how great we are to work with. And actually, the reason I asked him on the webinar was about
tell people about your pain and your problems and your issues, and because actually people want to know it's not just them. They want to hear what's going on in other parts of the country. It's about that learning again and sharing the experiences and also the solution. So actually we're part of a solution for that particular area and that trust. We're not the only solution. So it's actually, I want you just to share your experience. I'm not there for you to sell for me, because actually that's the whole point of what we do. And it's just disappointing sometimes that people always got that little suspicion that you're just trying to get money out of them, and actually we're not. And there's often times we'll go in and people want the whole sweet shop and they want all the products we sell, and it's actually, you don't need them all. You only need a few that are going to do what you want it to do, and actually, or you just need one, or to get you over the issue you've got at the moment. Just stick with one thing, start small. We can build from there as and when time grows and you get used to it and you understand what it is you can do with it. So just that suspicion that sometimes makes me a bit disappointed and uncomfortable. But once you get those relationships, I think, you know, they're invaluable, and you start to build that, and then people trust you more. It's building that trust.
Absolutely, but you know, it's a great message to be giving out as well in terms of your, I suppose, ethical approach to, you know, I suppose the commercial side of healthcare, and not just looking, you know, the NHS as a wide organisation has a big budget, but when it's broken down individually, it's still very underfunded. So it's great to have that, I suppose, you know, message coming through from providers like yourself, where you're only wanting to enhance solutions and essentially save the NHS money, rather than, you know, be just another cost and take as much sort of market share as you can.
Yeah, and I suppose it's going back to the beginning of the podcast and actually why we're all here and doing what we do. I got into nursing for a very specific reason. That's not changed. I'm just doing it in a different way. I'm using my skills in a different way to do that. So actually it's still at the core of everything we're doing. We're just, as I said, doing it in a different platform.
Yeah, fantastic. Well, look, Lisa, I mean, it's a really, really interesting story, and obviously a very important business, you know, and very needed within the within the NHS specifically, but also the wider healthcare economy. So if people are interested and they do want to find out a little bit more information about you guys, what's the best way for them to do that?
By all means, just drop us an email. It goes straight into all of our email boxes, and that's info@transformingsystems.com, or have a look on the website and there's a contact us on there.
Absolutely, perfect. Well, I'll let you get back to the important work that you're doing, but thank you so much for taking the time to feature on the podcast, and it's been really, really interesting to get an insight into, you know, both your background and also the, you know, more of an insight into the solutions that Transforming Systems are providing. So it's really, really great. So thank you so much for that.
You're welcome.
All right, well, keep safe, and we'll speak to you very soon. Thanks, Lisa.
Bye, Duncan.
Cheers.
So that's all we've got time for this week then, guys. Thank you very much to Lisa for taking the time to chat with me. I understand that Lisa is always open to having a conversation, so if anyone does have a question or wants to find out a little bit more about Transforming Systems, she would be very open to having a conversation. I've put a link to her LinkedIn profile in the summary of this podcast as well, but there is also the link to the Transforming Systems website as well, so you can do a bit of research on there. For anyone else who's wanting to get involved about anything else, my LinkedIn details are on them. Always happy to have a conversation, so feel free to get in touch with me should you have the need. But apart from that, I hope you guys are all managing to stay sane during lockdown, and we will be there very, very soon, don't worry. Fingers crossed. And Christmas is only around the corner, so plenty to look forward to. So until next time, I'll see you guys then. Cheers.
Spilling the Beans Digital Health Podcast is aimed at members of the digital health community globally, with guests from the United Kingdom, Australia and the United States. The podcast is available through all major podcast distributors as well as on YouTube. The show is sponsored by Woodrow Mercer Technology and Woodrow Mercer Digital Health.